Imagine a king so powerful he claimed to be God himself. There is no Lord but me. A tyrant so arrogant he built a tower to wage war against the heavens. Now imagine another. A warrior so mighty he conquered the entire known world, then tried to build paradise on earth with his own hands. I will build a heaven the sky will envy. Two men, two empires, two impossible ambitions. One dared to debate Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salam, and throw him into a blazing inferno. The other spent 500 years constructing a golden city that no human eye has ever seen. Both defied the creator of the universe. Both met ends so terrifying they're still told as warnings thousands of years later. One was destroyed by the smallest creature on earth. The other died screaming within sight of his dream. Let him face me, I will kill him. This is the true story of Nimrod and Shaddad ibn ʿād, the two most powerful tyrants in human history who learned too late. You cannot challenge Allah and win. But before we begin, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because what you're about to hear will shake you to your core. And don't forget to send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now let's dive in. The floodwaters had receded. Noah's Ark had settled on Mount Judy. Humanity began again, but with it, so did human arrogance. In the centuries following the Great Deluge, civilization rose from the mud like a phoenix. Two regions, separated by vast deserts yet connected by blood, would give birth to the most terrifying rulers the ancient world had ever known. In the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, the great city of Babylon emerged. Its ziggurats touching the clouds, its markets overflowing with gold from 1,000 conquered lands. And far to the south, in the windswept deserts of Al-Akaf, where Yemen meets the empty quarter, another kingdom was taking shape, one built not by ordinary men, but by giants. Both empires, both descended from the same righteous man, both about to be ruled by monsters. Nimrod, son of Canaan, traced his lineage back to Ham, the son of Noah. Some historians argue he came from Shem's line instead. But what's certain is this: the blood of the man who survived Allah's judgment ran through his veins. Yet instead of gratitude, instead of humility before the Creator who had spared his ancestors, Nimrod inherited only ambition. Even as a young man, he was obsessed with power. Not just political power, but divine authority. He would watch his father Canaan sit on the throne and think, "Why should I wait? Why should I bow to anyone, even my own blood?" So he killed him, murdered his own father in cold calculation, and took the crown for himself. Some say he was the first man in history to place a golden diadem on his head, an idea he stole from the jinn themselves. From hunter of beasts to hunter of kings, Nimrod carved out an empire that stretched from the rising sun to its setting. And everywhere his shadow fell, one command echoed, "I am your God, worship me." Meanwhile, across the Arabian deserts, another dynasty was cementing its grip on the world. Ad, son of Iram, had discovered paradise on earth, the region of Al-Akaf, a land so blessed that rivers flowed without ceasing, gardens bloomed without effort, and the sky poured rain like clockwork. He built his home there, raised his family there, and declared it forbidden to outsiders. His descendants multiplied into 13 mighty tribes. But these weren't ordinary people. The Ad were giants towering 12 cubits high, approximately 6 meters of pure muscle and bone. They could uproot trees with their bare hands. Their footsteps shook the ground. Legends spread across the known world about these superhuman warriors who feared nothing and no one. Among them rose two brothers, Shaddad and Shaddad, sons of Ad. Where Nimrod had murdered for his throne, these two conquered it through sheer overwhelming force. Together, they crushed every kingdom that dared resist. City after city fell. King after king bent the knee. Within years, the entire known world from east to west belonged to them. Then, Shaddad died, leaving Shaddad alone at the summit of earthly power. But power wasn't enough, not for Nimrod, who had made his people worship the sun as his symbol and the moon as his wives. Not for Shaddad, who spent his nights reading ancient texts describing a place called Jannah, a garden of gold and silver, of rivers and palaces prepared by Allah for the righteous. Nimrod's obsession became control, absolute, divine, unchallenged control. But then came the nightmare, a vision of a star rider in the sky, transforming, threatening, pointing a weapon directly at him. His priests interpreted it with trembling voices. "A child will be born in your kingdom who will destroy everything you've built." His response was immediate and merciless. "Kill every newborn male. Slaughter them in their cribs. Let the streets run red with innocent blood, if that's what it takes to preserve his godhood." Shaddad's obsession took a different form. If Allah could create paradise, why couldn't he? Why shouldn't he build his own eternal garden right here, right now, with his own hands? Let it be a monument not to the Creator, but to the created. Let it prove that man needs no God when man himself is mighty enough. Two tyrants, two delusions, two catastrophic collisions with divine reality. One would face a child he couldn't kill, the other would build a paradise he'd never enter. Both would learn the same lesson, just far, far too late. Before Nimrod became the god-king of Babylon, he was something far simpler, a hunter, but not the kind who hunted for food or survival. No, Nimrod hunted for sport, for dominance, for the thrill of watching something powerful fall beneath him. Lions, wild beasts, anything that dared roam his father's lands. The people whispered about his strength, his fearlessness, how he could track prey for days without rest and return, dragging carcasses that would take 10 men to carry. But hunting animals wasn't enough, not for a mind like his. His father Canaan had given him everything: wealth,
luxury, the finest education, access to the throne itself one day. But Nimrod looked at his father's crown and couldn't wait.
Why inherit what you can take? Why show gratitude when you can seize power? The historical records don't detail exactly how he did it, but they all agree on this. Nimrod murdered Canaan with his own hands and sat on his father's throne while the body was still warm. The golden crown he forged for himself wasn't just ornamental, it was a declaration. According to ancient sources, he studied the jinn, those beings of smokeless fire, and copied their royal regalia. When he placed that crown on his head, he wasn't just claiming kingship over Babylon, he was claiming divinity over all creation.
And the terrifying part? The world accepted it. His armies became unstoppable. Kingdom after kingdom collapsed before him.
Not through diplomacy, not through alliances, but through brutal, systematic conquest. From the eastern horizons to the western seas, from the northern mountains to the southern deserts, every tribe, every nation, every throne fell under Nimrod's shadow. He didn't just defeat his enemies, he erased them. Entire peoples learned to speak his name with their eyes cast down, trembling. He commanded his subjects to worship the sun as his manifestation and the moon as his queen. Priests built temples in his honor. Incense burned before his statues. Children grew up never knowing a world where Nimrod wasn't God.
This was the empire of absolute tyranny, where one man's word was law, life, death, and eternity.
Then came the dream that shattered his peace. In the dead of night, Nimrod saw a rider in the sky galloping across the stars. The figure transformed into a brilliant celestial body, blazing against the sun itself. Then it shifted again, becoming a warrior pointing a weapon directly at the earth, directly at him. He woke, drenched in sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs like it hadn't since he was a child. He summoned every astrologer, sorcerer, and dream interpreter in Babylon. They came in robes of purple and gold, burned their incense, cast their lots, read their stars, and when they finally spoke, Their voices were barely whispers. "O great king, a child will be born in your kingdom, and through him your reign will end." Nimrod didn't hesitate, not for a moment. The decree went out that very day. Every male child born in the empire must be killed. Not imprisoned, not exiled, killed. Soldiers kicked down doors in the middle of the night, ripping infants from their mothers' arms. The streets of Babylon ran with blood that should never have been spilled. Thousands of babies were slaughtered on Nimrod's orders. Innocents murdered to protect one man's ego. Mothers wailed, fathers fought and died trying to protect their sons. Mass graves filled the outskirts of the city. This was the cost of challenging a man who believed he was God. But in all that carnage, in all that surveillance and slaughter, one child slipped through. His mother hid the pregnancy, concealed the birth, smuggled the infant away from the soldiers' eyes with the kind of desperate cleverness only a mother fighting for her child's life can summon. The boy survived in secret, growing up in shadows and whispers, nursed in caves, raised in hiding. His name was Ibrahim alayhi salam, and years later, when that hidden child had grown into a fearless young man with conviction burning in his eyes, he would walk straight into Nimrod's throne room and do something no one had dared in generations. He would say no to a god. The hunter who became emperor was about to meet the prey he could never kill. The self-proclaimed deity was about to face a servant of the true God. And in that confrontation, the cracks in Nimrod's divine illusion would begin to show. The tyrant thought he'd eliminated the threat. He had no idea he'd just set the stage for his own humiliation. Nimrod had a peculiar custom. He controlled all the grain, all the food in Babylon. If you wanted to eat, you came to him. You bowed, you declared him Lord, and he would graciously allow you to take what you needed to survive. It was brilliantly cruel. Worship disguised as charity, submission wrapped in the appearance of generosity. One day, a young man named Ibrahim, A.S., stood in that line with everyone else. The crowds shuffled forward, heads down, murmuring the required words of devotion. Then Nimrod reached Ibrahim. "Who is your Lord?" The question he asked everyone. The crowd held its breath because Ibrahim, A.S., didn't lower his eyes, didn't bow, didn't mumble the expected answer. Instead, he looked the God King directly in the face and said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death." The throne room went dead silent. Nimrod's lips curled into a smile, the kind predators make before they strike. "I give life and death too," he said, voice dripping with mockery. He snapped his fingers. Guards dragged two prisoners forward, both condemned to execution. Nimrod pointed at the first. "You, I pardon, you're free. I have given you life." Then he pointed at the second. "You, execute him immediately." The sword fell, blood pooled on the marble floor. Nimrod leaned back on his throne, arms spread wide, grin triumphant. "You see, Ibrahim, I give life, I take life. What makes your God any different from me?" But Ibrahim, A.S., didn't flinch, didn't retreat. His voice remained steady, calm and devastating. "My Lord brings the sun from the east every morning, so bring it from the west." Time itself seemed to stop. Nimrod's smile vanished. His fingers gripped the armrests of his throne. The courtiers froze. The guards exchanged glances. Because everyone in that room, from the highest priest to the lowliest servant, knew exactly what had just happened. The emperor of the known world, the self-proclaimed deity, the man who claimed dominion over life and death itself, had just been rendered completely, utterly speechless. The Quran immortalizes this moment. So the disbeliever was overwhelmed, and Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. Nimrod didn't kill Ibrahim A.S. that day. He couldn't. To execute him in front of everyone would be to admit defeat, to show weakness, to prove that this young man's words had power his sword could not answer. So instead, he did something worse. He sent him away, empty-handed, humiliated but alive. But Ibrahim, AS, wasn't finished with Babylon's false gods. The people worshipped idols, stone statues they believed represented the celestial bodies, with the sun being Nimrod himself. These idols stood in a grand temple, adorned with gold, surrounded by offerings, treated with more reverence than human beings received. Ibrahim, AS, watched this madness and made a plan. When the people left for their festival celebrations, when the temple stood empty and unguarded, Ibrahim walked in with purpose burning in his chest. One by one, he took an axe and smashed every single idol into rubble, shattered their faces, broke their limbs, reduced these gods to dust and debris. Every idol except one, the largest statue, Marduk. On its shoulder, Ibrahim, AS, placed the axe. Then he walked out. When the people returned and saw the destruction, chaos erupted, screaming, accusations, rage. They knew immediately who was responsible. The young man who constantly mocked their worship, who called their gods powerless. They dragged Ibrahim before them. "Did you do this to our gods?" Ibrahim's response was masterful. "Ask them if they can speak. Let them tell you who did this." Then he paused, gesturing at the rubble. Or perhaps the large one grew jealous and destroyed the smaller ones himself. For a brief moment, sanity touched them. They looked at each other, confused, embarrassed. "You know these statues don't speak." "Then why?" Ibrahim pressed. "Do you worship what you carve with your own hands? Why bow to what cannot help you, cannot harm you, cannot even defend itself?" The truth hit too close, and when truth threatens power, violence always follows. The crowd's confusion turned to fury. The priests demanded blood. The people who had just admitted their gods were powerless suddenly screamed for those gods to be avenged. "Burn him," someone shouted, then another, then hundreds. "Burn him alive! If you truly worship your gods, defend them with fire." Nimrod heard the commotion and saw his opportunity. The boy who had humiliated him in front of the court would now be eliminated by popular demand. The greatest fire in human history was about to be lit, and Ibrahim, AS, was about to walk into it. They didn't just build a fire. They built an inferno that could be seen from the edges of the empire. Nimrod commanded his entire kingdom to contribute. Every household brought wood. Farmers hauled cartloads of timber from the forests. Merchants emptied their lumber yards. For days, the pile grew mountainous, monstrous, a monument to collective rage. They dug a massive pit in the center of Babylon, wide enough to hold a palace, deep enough that men standing at the bottom looked like ants from above. Then they ignited it. The flames roared to life with such intensity that people had to shield their faces from blocks away. The heat was so extreme that birds flying overhead fell from the sky, roasted mid-flight. Historians say this was the largest fire ever kindled on Earth. A blaze so massive that its glow lit up the night sky for miles, turning darkness into crimson daylight. Crowds gathered by the thousands. This wasn't just an execution. This was a spectacle, a warning, a reaffirmation of power. The man who dared question Nimrod, who dared smash their idols, who dared claim there was a god greater than their god king, he would burn so completely that not even his bones would remain. But there was a problem. The fire was too hot. No one could get close enough to throw Ibrahim in, so they built a catapult, a massive siege weapon, the kind used to hurl boulders at castle walls, was constructed specifically for this moment. The lever was pulled. Ibrahim, AS, flew through the air, a human projectile hurtling towards certain death. And in that suspended moment between Earth and Inferno, something extraordinary happened. The angel Gabriel, AS, appeared beside him, descending through the heavens with a question that echoed with divine concern. "Oh, Ibrahim, "Do you need anything?" Ibrahim didn't hesitate. His voice was calm, resolute, unshaken, even as flames rushed toward him. "From you? No. My need is only from Allah. Not a plea, not a bargain, not even a prayer spoken aloud. Just complete, absolute trust in the one who gives life and death, the real one, not the pretender on the throne." And then the command that rewrote the laws of nature. "O fire, be coolness and safety upon Ibrahim." Ibrahim, A.S., landed in the center of the blaze. The crowd waited for the screams, for the smell of burning flesh, for the final proof that their gods had been avenged. But the screaming never came. Minutes passed, then hours. The fire continued to rage, consuming wood, radiating heat that blistered skin from a distance. Yet from within that apocalyptic inferno, silence, calm, peace. Some say that on that day, every fire on earth momentarily went cold. Hearth fires in distant homes flickered and died. Candles extinguished themselves. Even the sun seemed to dim, as if all flame recognized its creator's command and bowed in submission. When the fire finally burned itself out days later, when the embers cooled enough for people to approach, they rushed forward, expecting to find ashes. Instead, they found Ibrahim, A.S., sitting peacefully in the center of the scorched earth, unburned, unharmed, without even the smell of smoke on his clothes. The ropes that had bound him had burned away, but his skin remained untouched. Not a hair singed, not a thread scorched. Thousands witnessed it. This wasn't a story passed down through whispers. This was a public miracle performed before an entire city, before Nimrod himself. The Quran records their intentions and Allah's response in devastating simplicity. They intended for him harm, but we made them the greatest losers. Nimrod stood on his platform, watching his ultimate weapon, fire itself, kneel before a power he couldn't comprehend. His face darkened, his jaw clenched, because in that moment before all of Babylon, his godhood had been exposed as the fraud it always was. A real God couldn't be defeated by a teenager and a flame that refused to obey. But did Nimrod repent? Did he fall on his face and beg forgiveness from the true Creator? No. His humiliation didn't produce humility. It produced something far more dangerous. A rage so deep, an arrogance so calcified that he would spend the rest of his life trying to prove he was still divine. If he couldn't burn the prophet, he would build his way to heaven itself. And that decision would lead to his most spectacular failure yet. While Nimrod was building his empire in Mesopotamia, something even more terrifying was emerging in the southern deserts. In the region of Al-Ahqaf, where Yemen's mountains meet the endless sand seas of the empty quarter, there lived a people who shouldn't have existed. The ʿād weren't just powerful, they were physically impossible by today's standards. 12 cubits tall. That's roughly 6 meters, 20 ft of muscle, bone, and godless arrogance towering over normal humans like adults over toddlers. Imagine a man who could uproot a palm tree with his bare hands, who could hurl boulders that would take 50 normal men to lift, whose footsteps cracked the earth beneath them. Now multiply that by hundreds of thousands, organized into 13 tribes, all descended from one patriarch named Shaddad ibn ʿɁād. They inherited a paradise. Al-Ahqaf was blessed beyond measure. Rivers that never ran dry. Gardens that bloomed without toil, rain that fell like clockwork from generous skies. Allah had given them everything: strength, land, resources, long lives that stretched for centuries, and they responded with idol worship and tyranny. 2 brothers rose above the rest, Shaddad and Shaddad, sons of ʿād himself. Where most conquerors spent decades building empires, these 2 crushed the known world in what felt like moments. Their armies didn't march, they stampeded. Nations that resisted were obliterated. Kings who refused to bow were executed publicly, their kingdoms absorbed, their people enslaved. From the eastern shores to the western seas, from freezing northern mountains to scorching southern deserts, the world belonged to the brothers of ʿād. Every tribe, every throne, every crown bent beneath their gigantic shadows. Then Shaddad died, leaving Shaddad as sole ruler of earth. But Shaddad had a problem. He had everything a man could want, yet he wanted more than mortality could offer. He spent his nights reading ancient manuscripts, scrolls preserved from before the flood, texts describing a place called Jannah, paradise, gardens of eternity, with rivers flowing beneath palaces of gold and silver, with walls of pearl and gates of ruby prepared by Allah for the righteous. And as he read, a thought poisoned his mind like venom. If Allah can build paradise, why can't I? The arrogance was breathtaking. The creator of the universe designs an eternal reward for believers. And this giant, this temporary creature made of clay and water, decides he'll just make his own version. Better, even grander, right here, right now, visible proof that man needs no God when man himself is mighty enough. He called his architects, his engineers, his entire kingdom to labor. I want a city that makes Allah's paradise look ordinary. Spare no expense. Take as long as needed. Build me Iram, a wonder the world will never forget. 500 years. That's how long it took. Generations of workers lived and died building Shaddad's dream. The foundations were pure gold. The walls were constructed from gems, emeralds, rubies, sapphires mortared with liquid silver. Massive marble columns held up structures that seemed to float in the air. Each pillar is carved from single stones and plated with precious metals. They diverted entire rivers underground, creating a network of crystal-clear waterways that flowed through every street, every garden, every palace. The city stretched 12 farsakhs in every direction, roughly 60 kilometers wide. Its walls rose 300 cubits high, taller than modern skyscrapers, visible from distances that would take days to cross. Inside, Shaddad built thousands of palaces, each one a masterpiece of arrogance. But in the city's center, overlooking everything, he constructed his personal residence, a monument to himself that dwarfed everything around it. This wasn't architecture, this was a challenge hurled at heaven itself. And Allah sent a warning in the form of Prophet Hud, alayhi salam, one of Shaddad's own people from his own noble lineage. Hud, came with a simple message. Turn back to Allah. Worship the one who gave you this strength, this land, this life before it's too late. Shaddad's response dripped with contempt. I am my own God. I've conquered the world. I've built paradise with my own hands. What has your invisible deity ever given me that I didn't take for myself? 5 centuries of construction, countless fortunes spent, limitless labor poured into making fantasy real. And Shaddad finally received word. It's finished. The city stood complete, golden, gleaming, impossible. The greatest wonder ever built by human hands, hidden in the desert, waiting for its king to enter and claim his throne. Shaddad gathered his entire court, advisors, soldiers, servants, the wealthy elite who had financed this madness. They formed a procession that stretched for miles, a parade of pride, marching toward man-made heaven. One day's journey away, so close, Shaddad could almost taste his triumph. He had no idea he'd never take another step. Nimrod couldn't let it go. The fire that wouldn't burn Ibrahim, AS, haunted him like a phantom. His priests tried to explain it away. His advisors suggested forgetting the whole incident. But the God King of Babylon knew what everyone had seen. His power had limits. Ibrahim's God did not. So he decided to settle this once and for all. If this Allah lives in the heavens, Nimrod declared, then I will build a stairway to his throne and face him myself. The Tower of Babel rose from the plains of Shinar like a man-made mountain. 600,000 workers labored day and night, stacking brick upon brick, level upon level, pushing the structure higher and higher until clouds formed around its peak. It took a full year just to climb from base to summit. Nimrod had created the first skyscraper, not for commerce, not for worship, but for war against the divine. When construction finished, Nimrod stood at its peak above the clouds, touching the lower atmosphere. He thought he'd won. Finally, he could reach heaven itself. Then the ground trembled. In seconds, the entire tower collapsed. Millions of bricks, years of labor, the architectural wonder of the ancient world gone, buried so completely that not a trace remains. You won't find the Tower of Babel listed among the 7 wonders, despite being the first, because Allah erased it from existence like it had never been. But he wasn't finished with Nimrod yet. An angel appeared before the tyrant, not to strike him down, but to offer mercy. Believe in Allah, and you may keep your kingdom. Nimrod refused. The angel came a second time. Same offer, same refusal, a third time. This is your final chance. There is no God but me. The angel vanished, and the sky darkened with something Nimrod had never feared in his life. Gnats. Millions upon millions of tiny, insignificant insects so small they seemed like dust in the air. His soldiers laughed at first. The mighty Nimrod threatened by bugs. Then the swarm descended. They attacked his army like piranhas, covering every exposed inch of skin, burrowing into eyes, ears, mouths. The soldiers screamed and swatted, but for every gnat killed, 1,000 more replaced it. Within hours, the greatest military force on earth was reduced to screaming, thrashing chaos. The gnats ate their flesh, drank their blood, and didn't stop until only skeletons remained standing in armor. Hundreds of thousands of elite warriors destroyed by creatures you could barely see. But Nimrod himself survived. He stood alone among the bones of his army, untouched, thinking perhaps his divinity had saved him after all. Then he felt it, a tickle in his nostril. One single gnat, smaller than a grain of rice, flew into his nose and burrowed into his skull. It reached his brain and nested there. The pain was beyond description, a constant drilling, buzzing, gnawing sensation inside his head that never stopped, never slept, never gave him a moment's peace. Nimrod, the man who had burned thousands of babies, who had conquered the known world, who had declared himself God, was brought to his knees by the smallest of Allah's creatures. Nimrod, the god-king who tried to burn Prophet Ibrahim, a.s. alive, met a fate more humiliating than death itself. A microscopic gnat entered his skull and gnawed at his brain for 400 years. The only relief? Servants smashing his head with iron hammers, stunning the insect for mere seconds before the agony resumed. 4 centuries of madness, 4 centuries of screaming. The hunter became the hunted, defeated by something invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, Shaddad built his paradise. 500 years of construction, the city of Iram, golden, gleaming, impossible. He'd done it without Allah, proving man needed no God. One day's journey from his triumph, the sky split open. A sayha, the scream, a sonic blast from heaven so powerful it didn't just kill, it obliterated. Shaddad dropped dead instantly. His entire army was erased. Every worker, every servant, every soul annihilated in a single divine breath. The city stood perfect, untouched, but its builder lay face down in the sand, one day short of his dream. On his golden tomb they carved his own words. I ruled 700 years. I conquered 1,000 nations. I killed 1,000 champions. And now I am nothing but dust. 2 tyrants, 2 perfect deaths. One thought he could burn prophets, died screaming from fire inside his skull. One thought he could build paradise, died before entering it. Allah didn't use earthquakes or floods. He used a gnat and a scream. The things they considered beneath notice became instruments of their destruction. The Quran asks, Have you not seen what your Lord did to Iram of the pillars, the likes of which has never been created? Bedouins still report finding it in the empty quarter, golden columns, jeweled walls, but when they return, nothing, just sand. Maybe we're not supposed to find it easily. Maybe the lesson matters more than the artifact. Every tyrant learns eventually there's only one true king, Allah al-Malik al-Qahar, the one who gives power and takes it away. The tyrants change, the ending never does.